Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast with your host Leslie Caesar, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast. I'm Leslie Caesar, your host for the podcast, and today I have a very special guest for you, a very dear friend. So let's jump right in and let me tell you a little bit more about her. Suzanne Caesar, M.A., is an accomplished dancer, choreographer, certified perinatal fitness expert, and founder of Rhythm for Life. Considered an innovator in prenatal dance, Suzanne produced and choreographed the Prenatal Belly Dance Workout DVD, endorsed by the March of Dimes, and featured on Fox News, Self, and Pilates Style magazines, among other media outlets. A native New Yorker, Suzanne was an award-winning Irish dancer early in her career. After years of dance training, she took a detour into advertising, but found her way back to her passion. She began performing with Stephen Koplowitz and Company in such venues as the American Museum of Natural History and Dance Theater Workshop, and with other freelance choreographers performing at West Beth Theater, the Dia Arts Foundation, and on tour through Mexico with Edith Steffen. One of Suzanne's proudest achievements was when she received a handwritten letter of recommendation from jazz dance legend Luigi, which she continues to treasure to this day. While working on her Master's of Arts in Dance at New York University, Suzanne became pregnant with her first child, setting the stage for her first program, Maternal Dance, as seen on the Discovery Health Channel, New York One, The Bump, Bella Magazine, and more. She's worked at the Board of Education in New York City and in private schools as resident choreographer and dance educator. Suzanne has choreographed Guys and Dolls for the Summers Theater Company, special events for the Putnam Arts Council, the United Way Telethon, and Sony Plaza, New York City, where she also performed with Mambo World Champion Richard Diaz. She is now working as a guest choreographer for the role of Andre Peel in the show Women of Resistance. Suzanne is currently producing and choreographing an original evening-length dance play, the HERA Odyssey, a mythical and mystical tale of the heroine's journey. Excerpts of the show have been performed at the Hudson Guild Theater, Shine On Cabaret, and Reflections of the Feminine Soul art opening in New York City. Most recently performed at the Hyatt Regency Sarasota and featured on the Sun Coast View in Sarasota, Florida. Let's welcome Suzanne to the show. Welcome, Suzanne. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Leslie. Wow, such a pleasure.
It's nice to hear all the things you've done. It's probably good for you to hear this again.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Walk down memory lane.
I have always felt like my background has been so disjointed with my dance career, but actually there's a flow to it. Like, wow, yeah, that's why that happened.
Perfect.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's only in the end that you can see all the threads, all the connections. Mm-hmm. Yes. So let's start. I always like to begin by asking my guest where they started, where their not their dance career necessarily, but just when they started dancing and what the beginning of the journey looked like.
Well, I mean, I can only go back to the very beginning at 5 years old when I started to take ballet lessons. I was in ballet class, and I was doing very well. They chose me even to play Sleeping Beauty in the the recital show that they were doing. Um, but I had a very different feeling about the whole thing, even at 5 years old, because I did not have the body type of a ballet dancer. And even at 5, just comparing myself to the other dancers, I was taken out of ballet class because I started to cry every time I was there. So my mother put me into an Irish dance class, which was in the neighborhood. So that felt more comfortable for me. And the girls were older, and I grew up very quickly physically. So I matured quickly. So I felt comfortable in the Irish dance world, and then became a champion Irish dancer, which is sort of crazy because this is coming full circle now. In about 2 weeks, I'm going to be performing Irish dance for a Celtic Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah.
See?
Wow.
It does all make sense in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, I've only seen you Irish dance once. Suzanne
Mhm.
and I are very old and dear friends.
Yes.
So we
And
have
you're
a
my
long
colleague and
history.
my mentor. Sorry, but I had to say colleague, mentor, and so much more.
We
Yes.
have a long history. So I know a lot about you, but I think what you're doing is so interesting, and I really hope that other people will be interested. I'm sure they'll be interested in what you're doing as we talk about it more deeply. But I do want to kind of just touch on a couple things. We want to talk about the HERA Odyssey because that's where you are right now.
Hmm.
And it is an odyssey, and it's your
Hmm.
story as much as it's every woman's story.
Hmm.
But let's talk about just a little bit, hit on some of the pieces along the way, because you have done things that I think are really important, like the maternal dance. I know
Hmm.
it's not your main focus right now, the HERA Odyssey is, but this is a beautiful it's a beautiful DVD and program for women who are pregnant. And I think that, you know, now we do know how important the mother's well-being, not just like for exercise, but for the mother's well-being, her state of mind. And to me, the program that you developed, like using belly dance type movements and things like that, it's a lot of fun. And I think that it's a beautiful way to move into your pregnancy. So maybe just tell us a little bit about, I know it started, as you said in your bio, it started when you got pregnant with your first child. So maybe just tell us a little bit about how that unfolded for you.
Yeah. Dancing in a graduate program and then becoming pregnant. First of all, everybody thought I was going to just quit, like leave, because I was pregnant. And I'm like, no, I'm still here. I'm still going to dance. By the time I was 8 months pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, I was in my anatomy and kinesiology class. And everybody was watching me move in space. They were watching my belly, watching, how this is all. And it was kind of bizarre, but I really did use things that I learned that I can't really articulate in the moment. I have to really think about it, and feel into it. But by the time I gave birth, uh, I realized this really helped me. And it helped me physically, yes. It helped me to prepare for labor and delivery. But it was working on a master's degree, there's a lot of work that you do. And it can be very stressful, especially towards the end of the semesters when you're having to, show pieces, show pieces of your work, perform, choreograph, do papers. And I was very stressed. And I understood then, like, the dancing, yes, dance is exercise. The dancing, though, was a creative outlet. It helped me to process and move a lot of the stresses I was feeling as a pregnant woman. And I was a single woman. I wasn't with a partner at the time. Actually, I was with a partner, but physically we were not together. He was in Mexico, I was here, and well, in New York. And so it was challenging, but I realized, pregnant women not only need something that is tailored to their bodies, movement wise, but also a creative outlet, a place to put some of these feelings that they were experiencing. Because when we're pregnant, and you have 2 children, a lot of things are going on in our heads, in our dreams, just in our daily lives. And it's like, what do we do with this? So yeah, I found it very cathartic for me in that way. And I felt like I wanted to share this with other women, other, expectant women.
And I think another interesting piece is that you were amongst other dancers, but you were the pregnant woman. And as you said with the ballet, like you didn't have a ballet dancer's body, which I understand. I didn't either. And so I really get that. But it's important. It's important for women, especially, to embrace other women who are in different bodies. And in your case, it was a pregnant body. So it must have been really interesting for the other students to see a pregnant woman dancing, that it's not like you're ill. There's something wrong with you. It's just you're in a different state of being, and this body can still move in beautiful ways. And yeah, maybe you have to adjust, but there's the learning as well. I mean, that must have taught you so much about your own body, just to witness it in a different state and possibly similar movements, but in a different state of being.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I was studying Hawkins technique pretty heavily at that time. And I had the opportunity to do a workshop with Eric Hawkins in his later years. And I was about 6 months pregnant. And we were traveling across this huge dance floor, one by one at a time. And there I was online, 6 months pregnant. And I was just really popping out. My belly was popping out. And I went across the dance floor, did my piece across the dance floor. And then he stopped everybody and made a comment that I needed to pull in my abdominals.
Oops.
He didn't say it in that way, but then I had to say, well, I'm pregnant. And then it was like, oh, okay. And then we just moved on. But it was just really interesting how he caught that, he's was very attuned, because I did the movement, the movement was performed well, but I knew there's that little belly popping out, so he noticed. That was nice. It was cute, actually. But those little things keep those little memories are important to me, because I guess because Eric Hawkins noticed me. I don't know. It's like, wow.
There you go.
But
Who was the pregnant woman?
Yeah. Who's the pregnant
Remember that pregnant woman? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it must have been interesting for him too. I mean, I think that's what I think is, like, the other dancers must have found this really interesting, because you're still dancing. You didn't just stop, but you obviously have to alter your movements, or maybe not even your movements, maybe the way you carry yourself, but that must teach you so much about your own body, to have been a dancer before that, and here you are during it, and dancing with other people who have expectations that you're going to be able to do what they're doing. And you probably are, but you're going to have to do it in a slightly different way, I would think. And
that is the key.
Yeah. And that's a learning experience for your body and for you witnessing your body. Yeah.
Yes. It does make me think too, during that time when I first became pregnant, and I said, no, I'm not stopping the program. I'm going to continue. And yes, everybody was surprised. But I was still taking my ballet classes. At that point, I went back to ballet. But after a little while, it didn't feel good to my pregnant body. It didn't feel good. And I went to the program director and my midwife, and I said, you know what, I really can't be doing ballet. For some reason, it's not working with me. And the Hawkins technique was great. It was very, the body was able to conform with the movement. And yes, there were modifications. But it's interesting, because from a little girl not feeling comfortable in my body, and then being pregnant and having to stop ballet because it didn't feel good to me. Not to say that it wouldn't feel good to somebody else. A lot of ballerinas out there pregnant, having babies, and more power to all of us, for being able to move and continue what we're doing and be pregnant, and have healthy babies. The thing is that I did leave the class in the middle of the semester. And the funny thing is, the professor, and I forget her name, she went to one of my classmates, and my classmate came to me later and said, "Do you know what Professor so-and-so said? She was so sorry that you had to leave ballet class because she said you're such a graceful dancer." And I was like, did not feel graceful at all. Ballet has always been a struggle.
That's not usually a word you relate with pregnant.
Especially with being pregnant. I thought, oh, wow, that's unbelievable. That's just too much. So ironic.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what a beautiful experience. And I think that is the beauty of the program that you created, because belly dance really is the dance of the womb. It is something that in ancient times women did to actually expel the child, during the birth process. So, to bring it back to that, and to find a form of dance that was conducive to your body.
Yeah, the belly dance, the sweat, the rocking of the hips, it's even more than just helping the baby down the birth canal. It really does help, but it's also, I mean, we want to be present, but it's also a distraction from the pain, from the contractions. The movement kind of helps, quote unquote, move the pain as well. And that's what I found. I also was tutored by my mom, who has 9 kids. I'm the oldest of 9, and I did ask her going into labor. I said, "Mom, how did you do this? No, not going into labor, but beforehand." I said, "How did you do this? 9 kids?" And she said, "Honey, I used imagery." And so I incorporated imagery in the work, which is, as a dancer, we're used to visualizing ourselves performing, going through the steps. As a choreographer, up at night, watching the choreography in my head,
whether you want to or not.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was like a natural, oh yeah, imagery. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So I incorporated that in my maternal dance classes too. So it became more of not just dance. And my class did grow in that way. It kind of morphed into something more than just dance for pregnant women. It was dance, but also a creative outlet, and it supported the pregnant body. And ultimately, it became a program where it wasn't so much getting in shape, it was getting in shape for labor, preparing your body. But, from the moment of conception, our bodies know what to do. And our minds also, within those 9.5 to almost 10 months, our body is making the adjustments, but our mind, emotionally, mentally, we are, and spiritually, going on this journey, and we're preparing. We don't even realize that we're preparing. And to have a program that supports that, preparation, and celebrate it, it needs to be celebrated. So I just really enjoyed. I always ended my classes with a dance. A prenatal dance. We did prenatal salsa and prenatal this and prenatal that. It was really kind of fun. And it was, what I found interesting was that the women, by the time they walked out of class, they felt relaxed, but they were also rejuvenated. They were lifted. And that to me just made me so happy. It just made me so happy. And then getting feedback after they gave birth too was amazing. I really was blown away. I really believe, by the way, I'm doing a program called Rhythm for Birth right now. It's going to be an online course. So I'm working on this right now because this work is really important to me. And I want to have it out there for more women to experience. But in the process of building Rhythm for Birth, I realized, because I was going to call it maternal dance, I thought, this is not maternal dance anymore. It has grown into something bigger. It's more holistic, meaning it's more well-rounded. It covers, the feeling of being pregnant and preparing yourself to start moving, and how you're going to see your birth, visualizing the birth of your baby. So it's really, in a nutshell, Rhythm for Birth is the empowering, tips, tools, and true tales to birth your baby your way. And natural is better only because, one reason is because there are no interventions. However, it doesn't matter if you want an epidural or if you need certain things to help you birth. It's fine, but it puts you in the driver's seat to make the choices how you want to birth your baby your way. And I think that's
finding your own rhythm. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that's a
Oh
beautiful
yes.
name because it is about rhythm. It's not this is what you have to do, but each individual's rhythm, which is going to be different,
Hmm. Yeah.
and to take that into account.
And there are women who have ecstatic births where they feel like they're having an orgasm as they're birthing, you
Yeah.
know, and I've heard those stories and I'm like, oh, I wish that was me, but
Yeah.
no. But
Yes.
so
That
everybody,
not in this lifetime, but yeah.
right, and everybody is different, right? Everybody
Yeah.
is different, and everybody is different.
Yeah.
So it's just a support. It's another way to. Um, it's like a rite of passage into motherhood because it
Yes.
supports that rite of passage. I don't know if you know this, but in ancient times, a midwife was not the person we know today. They didn't have a medical background.
Yeah.
Of course, women were the ones who oversaw the bringing in of new life and the leaving of life,
Yeah.
passing on. They were the ones who were there and facilitated and supported. But a midwife in ancient times was really the person who would be on guard, would watch to make sure nobody came through this sacred time of a woman, in labor. There were other women helping her labor, but the midwife was the person who was kind of like the guard of the gate, like,
Yeah.
no, you're not coming in right now, So I found that very interesting when I learned about
Mhm.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think that is important, and midwives, even in the last 30 years, have really changed. I mean, now
Mhm.
they usually are medical practitioners of some
Yeah.
sort,
Yeah.
and they didn't they didn't used to do that. And I agree. You need somebody to advocate for you. You need
Yes.
somebody to, yeah, tend the gate, whatever needs to be done, because it is a sacred process. And sadly, it's just not seen that it's like we got to get it over with kind of thing so that the
Mhm.
baby gets here, and that's really sad, but
I mean, we have
anyway.
doulas now. We have doulas
Yeah.
now. So that's,
Yes.
they kind of have stepped into the role of midwife in that way. Um,
Yes.
and thank goodness for doulas because women, need another voice when they're in that time of not just focusing on,
Yes.
delivering a baby. Takes focus. Yeah.
And women are community minded. We need support for, I mean,
Mhm.
you do it in a circle rather than this is
Yeah.
my mission and I'm gonna do it. So I
Yes. And
think,
that is the
yeah,
feminine. The divine feminine is there are many ways to do things. There are many ways, you know. We find the way that works for us. The masculine is so like linear, like, nope, this is the way,
yeah,
that's it,
yeah.
So,
And that's fine for some things, but
yeah,
not for birthing a baby.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you had a second child. How was that process different? Had you
Yeah.
already created maternal dance, or
So,
where on the timeline does this happen?
Um, maternal dance was kind of like I had already been thinking about, wow, there's prenatal yoga, there's prenatal this, prenatal that, what about dance? And then I become pregnant with my second child. And that's when it really hit home for me because I was no longer in this container and safe little space of a world with, you know, the graduate program was not so big. There were about 20 of us or so, maybe a little more, but it wasn't a very big group. And we were all very intimately connected. So me, as my belly grew in this little space of a family, my dance family at NYU, I really felt very comfortable. So then here I am out of that. And I'm like, oh, I got to find, what am I doing? I felt really out of sorts. And so I found prenatal yoga, and I found a program called maternal fitness. And I learned so many new things that I incorporated into my eventually maternal dance. But what I found interesting was that there was no, I don't know, like with the prenatal dance aspect, there was more, I don't know. I would go home after these classes and literally, yes, I talk about this, put on Bob Marley, reggae music, and just start swaying my hips and letting the music just let me flow and go. And that made me feel good, And I thought, this is what I'm missing. I'm missing this aspect. I loved all the other exercise modalities, but I needed that part of it, which I think is the creative outlet part,
Yeah, which brings joy, and we definitely need that. Yes.
Yes, and the playfulness, women need to play. We need to play. That's where we get our inspiration. That's where we come alive, and it's like all of a sudden, like, wow, I got that idea. What were you doing when you got that idea? Yes, sometimes it happens in the shower when we're not thinking. We're just like scrubbing our, washing our hair, and all of a sudden, boom, an idea comes because we're not thinking. We're just like being. But that's what play does for us too. It opens us up, and it allows us to just be a conduit of just ideas, and then also releasing those ideas in the movement, like just releasing not even the ideas, but just other things to make space for the new ideas to come in. So
yes. No, we do. We need that. We all need that, whether you're pregnant or not. But I think, yes, very often when women get pregnant, and maybe also because it's like 9 months, they think, well, I got to focus for 9 months and do this and do that. And it now there's too much information that women are bombarded with things. So just dance and have a nice time and bring some joy into your life and enjoy it, or sit with the baby and, put your hands on your womb or something simple that,
it's funny. I in the middle of maternal dance growing in New York City, I became friendly with a lot of doulas and midwives and nurses. And one of the doulas, we bumped into each other one day on the street, and she said, "Oh, by the way, there's an imagery course that is open to doulas. Would you like to come and join us?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love that," because I knew already the power of imagery for birthing. And I attended the course. It was great, but I found it very interesting that I was the only body worker person, like meaning, a mover. All the other people, and it wasn't a very big class, there were about 10 of us. And everybody else was either a doula nurse, they were all in the medical field. And I was the only person. I'm like, wow, this needs to be, I think, now it's changed. I think a lot more people are tuned into that, aspect, but that's a part of birthing, visualizing and also taking you through the whole 10 months practically, because it is almost 9-10 months. But I think it's really important, because it's not, I have a story. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was under a lot of stress because I didn't have my partner with me every day. And I was going through school, and it was very stressful. And one morning my mom was coming with me to one of my doctor's appointments. This was toward like about 8 months pregnant or so. And I said, "Mom, I'm really stressed. I'm really stressed. I've got this project coming up. I've got this paper. I've got, and I'm really stressed." And she said, "I think you should tell your midwife that you're stressed. That's not good. Not while you're pregnant." So I did. And I was embarrassed. It was like, it was almost like being vulnerable. And I should have felt safe to be vulnerable, but, felt like it was hard for me to be vulnerable in that way. But I did tell the midwife, and she put me in touch with a therapist. And in therapy, he asked me, a few questions, and we got to know each other. I was going every week. I found it very helpful. But one day he asked me to articulate how I was feeling about something, and I couldn't. And I said, I can't put it into words. And he said to me, "Dance it for me."
Wow.
And I said, "What do you mean? Get up and dance right now?" 8.5 months pregnant. And he said, no, just in your mind's eye, dance it for me. So I sat back and I went through this dance. I saw my body, my pregnant body, dancing, visualizing. And I don't know how long I sat there. I don't know how long it was. And I literally followed it, just followed the whole piece. And then when I was done, I said, I'm finished. And he said, I know, I could tell. I said, how could you tell? He said, because I could see it in your eyes.
Wow.
And it was like a release. You know, it was like, wow, now that's dance therapy. You know?
Yep.
It was really, really powerful for me. So
You did. And it is a great tool. I use this with women who like can't move for whatever reason. And also, I mean, it is very powerful to imagine this yourself dancing, because all the muscles are still firing, even if you are not actually standing.
yeah.
And several years ago, we took a group to Upper Egypt, and it was after the revolution, and no one was allowed to do any ceremony or anything in any of the temples. I was the dance person, and I was with Dan First, who was a sound person. And so what we did was I told the people what we're going to do. And I said, I will tell you when, and you just stand still and you close your eyes and you imagine this whole thing happen. You're going to dance it in your mind because they don't want us to do this. Okay. I respect, whatever, one in Rome, so that's fine. We have we have infinite ways to do things. So I think that, again, you're talking about creativity. Find another way to do it. Even if you were a pregnant woman who had to lay down in bed at the end of the pregnancy, you can still, like you did, do that visualization. And yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to be standing or something, too much, but there's always other ways to do it. So good for him. Yeah, that he that he came up with that. Beautiful.
And that was an eye-opener for me too. It really, because as a dancer, choreographer, the imagination is so, really active, as best we can. Sometimes it shuts down too, but it was really powerful for me, knowing that visualization and imagery can be that transcendent, just takes you to another place,
Well, and I think also as a dancer, you're always going to sort of feel the obligation, which is not the right word, but to actually move, and sometimes we need the stillness. Sometimes it's the contrast or whatever that we need. So I think, yes, as a dancer, we should always try these other things, and because they will be illuminating on some level. Yeah. So fast forward several years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was with you when you conceived of the HERA Odyssey. So I remember I was there.
Yes.
So, and that was a while ago. So tell us about the HERA Odyssey and how it came to be, or it's still unfolding, but now you're really, how the idea came to be and how the process has unfolded.
Wow. What a journey. Seriously, what a journey. The idea came right after I met you. And I was in the process of, had just separated from my husband. And I was in such a bad way that I stopped dancing. I stopped teaching. I really couldn't do a whole lot. It was devastating. And then I get this invite to this lecture on, I think it was ancient Egyptian sacred dance or something ancient Egypt. And I was like, okay, this is right up my alley. I have to go to this. And it was really a battle for me to get to bring myself to go, because I was so down about what was happening in my life. But I forced myself to go. I was even a little late because I was fighting it. And you blew me away with everything that you talked about. And then the next time we met was at your workshop, Ancient Egyptian Sacred Dance Workshop, which was the same, around the same week. It was like within a few days. And I was also blown away. As a dancer, I found it really, I struggled in the workshop because I wanted to move. And then we had to bring everything down into like these simple movements.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, am I in the right workshop here? But I also found it so comforting because I had moved in these ways that were sensual and sexual. And I say sexual because I embrace that too. That's, our sexual power is our creativity, and vice versa. But I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder why I moved this way. I knew I had an affinity to ancient Egypt. I knew it. And that really opened me up. It opened me up. I didn't go back to dancing and teaching yet, but this really stuck with me. And it was a few months later, it was so that was in the summer of 2009. Literally,
I'm impressed that you remember.
Literally, well, because the date of the HERA Odyssey
started then. Yeah.
And then and I was invited to that workshop because of maternal dance. The person who invited me, Marianne,
yes.
She had me on her list, and I met her through a networking group for maternal, for pregnant women. So it was like, wow, if it wasn't for maternal dance, I would not have come here. So October 31st, Halloween, was the night the HERA Odyssey was conceived, the idea. And how that happened, I hadn't been dancing for 6 months. And my apartment I was building another room so that my daughter and my son, who are now entering their teenage years, could have their own rooms. So I got rid of my dining room space, and here I was. We had sold the dining room furniture and everything, and my kids were out trick-or-treating, and I'm home by myself, and I'm laying on the couch, and I'm like, okay, I cannot let this opportunity of this space go by. I've got to put some music on and just move. After like 6 months of not dancing, I got myself up, I put some music on, and I started to move. And I started to just go crazy. 2 hours in, all of a sudden, like a lightning bolt, boom, I get this idea for a show. I drop to the floor. I'm like laughing, crying. Oh my God. I take out a journal. I start writing. I'm sitting on the floor writing, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this with the show. It's like, okay. And then I start telling everybody, guess what? I'm doing a show. Guess what? I'm doing a show. Well, people who knew me closely, they were thinking, yeah, she probably will do it, because when she announced that she was going to leave her advertising job, her advertising career, to go back and dance at 28 years old, and then she really did it. Okay. When she announced that she was going to go back to dance, to go back to school for dance at 30 years old, and then she really did it. Oh, okay. And then when she announced she's going to do a dance program for pregnant women at a time when nobody was doing it, they're like, oh, come on. What? Pregnant women dance? What? You're crazy. But I did it. So it's like, now I'm announcing to everybody, and I'm doing a show, and I'm doing a show. Well, I had to turn back to myself and say, I'm doing a show. How am I doing this show? Yes, I had produced the prenatal belly dance workout DVD. That idea came to me too. And after a couple of years of talking about it, this one year I said, that's it, I'm doing it. It's coming out. And bing, bang, boom, I met the right people at the right time. And within 6 months of saying that, really doing it this time, it came out. So it's like, okay, this is possible. I just don't know what I'm doing. So that's been the journey of learning how to produce a show. But I just want to choreograph it. I'm like, I just want to choreograph it. I don't want to be the producer, but I'm the producer, and when I had to put a budget together, I had to put a hat on. I'm doing a budget now. I don't know how to do a budget. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like at every step,
That's how
it's
you
like,
learn.
oh, now I got to stop and do this. And when I approached it that way, it was a struggle. And then I'd have to say to myself, you want this. How badly do you want this? It's like, okay, I've got to do this. So I would sit back and ease myself into that next task. But ultimately, it taught me something new about myself. At every turn, I'm learning something new about myself. At the same time, choreographing the dances. And and going back to visualization, it was one of the songs that you would play in your workshop that I couldn't get out of my head. Like every time I listened to it, I could see the story. And I'm like, no, I can't use that song. Leslie uses it in her workshop. And after a while, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to choreograph something and see what happens. And the story has been unfolding and unfolding. My script has been rewritten, a number of times. When I really sat down to write the script, it was a producer friend of mine who said, okay, so let me see a script. I said, I don't have a script. I said, it's dance theater. She's like, no, you don't understand. You need a script. I said, no, there is no dialogue. At least at the time, there was no dialogue. And she said to me, no, you don't understand. You need to write a script because you got to show prospective producers and investors. I'm like, wow. Now I got to put on the hat of writing a script. And it took me a year and a half to get that first version, after many edits, to a place where it's something I could see visibly in my head. And it's funny because every dance that I've choreographed since for the show, it's like I'm not doing the dance because it's like, okay, now I'm going to work on this one. No, it's like I'll be finishing one dance and then I keep getting this message. Okay, this is the next piece.
Download.
I'm like, yeah, but it's not chronological. It's not, nope, you got to work on this piece next. Yeah, it didn't matter. It's like, okay, now I'm working on this piece. So it was like, is a little bit, I don't know. I feel like, I really do feel like this is something I need to do. And, 12 years in, like, oh, I'm still working on it. But no, the show has grown. I have grown. It really has helped me and shaped me to step into my own self-worth and who am I really? What do I value? My truth. And I've had to go through the trials and tribulations and have the courage to keep going forward. That's part of the heroine's journey. It's like we come upon obstacles and it's like, okay, the obstacle is here. We have the choice. It's either stop and go backwards and just, don't take that journey inward, we just stop, or I don't want to use the word tackle, but we face it head on. We develop the skills in the moment to be like, okay, you know what? I can do it this way, or I can do it this way, or it really is.
That's learning.
It really is. I liken it to the Wizard of Oz, because I was thinking about this the other day about the heroine's journey, and there was something about this Odyssey that we take that Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, that's basically what it was for her. The answer was in her all along. She couldn't see it. She had to go through all of those trials and tribulations along the yellow brick road in order for her to come to that, oh, there's no place like home. It's inside of me. And she had to bump into the scarecrow. Like, she got support along the way as she was moving, as she was taking that road forward. She could have ran back to Glenda, the good witch, and said, I can't do this, then the story ended.
I'm pretty sure Glenda wouldn't have said okay, but
right. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, it was really it was her outward journey that we experienced, but really it was her inward journey that she had to take to step up, to, have the courage to take that next step forward. and to have the courage to talk to the scarecrow and, and everybody else who she brought along the way. And then she ended up inspiring people as she went along the way, so that is the heroine's journey. And it really is based on Greek mythology too. And at one point I was filling out a grant application a couple of years ago, and I'm thinking, okay, why Greek mythology? And all of a sudden I remembered, wow, when I was in 5th grade, our teacher would take us to the library once a week. And I was so obsessed with Greek mythology at that point in my life. And I would be walking out with the big Greek mythology anthologies, like these big, thick books with all the Greek stories. And my classmates were like, what are you reading? What is that? And they were like, oh, you're crazy. Because they would take out, just normal books that you read in 5th grade. And I just really soaked it all in. I was like a sponge. I loved it. But that memory, that, those stories, we all know them on some level. Mm-hmm. Right. They're archetypal. Yeah.
Yeah. We tap into them.
But it wasn't a conscious thing as I was developing this show. But I will say, I went back and researched the history of women. And as I was researching, I came upon an article written by a professor. I wish I can remember her name, and I have it written down at some point. I'm going to have to make notes of all these people. But she wrote a fabulous paper on ancient Greek theater. And this is what blew me away, because I had already had the mythical, dance play and had realized about my Greek mythology journey. And she wrote about how in ancient Greek theater, the audience members would come to the theater to be moved, to be empowered, to be transformed, to be inspired, right? And how not because of coming to see big leaps and jumps and outrageous things. No, it was they got excited and anticipated these little gestures and movements that the dancers would make that would just change everything for them. It brought something out in them. And that really spoke to me. And the basic movements in ancient Egyptian sacred dance that you have taught, that you still teach, when I went back, when I was realizing, okay, ancient Greek theater, this is what they went to the theater for, to be transformed. And these movements that I learned from Leslie, that I've now, they inform a lot of my work, and just, it's amazing. But they give off a vibration. They give off, give off feelings that the audience members can feel. So my intention, as I was choreographing, I should say, because, writing the script is one thing. There's a story, there's a narrative. But then every time I went into the studio, that was very present for me. That was my intention. I would like the movements that I'm using to give off something to the audience that they can feel, viscerally feel. And at the same time, not make it so dramatic, but make it, there is drama in my show, but not make it so, I forget, I can't think of the word, just magnificent.
Yeah.
Just, like showy or something. I can't think of the word. Not sensationalized, it's not that. It's just more simple, more felt, touching in a way that is not
subtle.
Subtle. Yeah. So it's not the word I'm looking for, but still, it doesn't matter. It's very close,
Yeah.
And the thing is, so every time, so I started performing my pieces, with myself or other dancers. And at every turn, whether in New York, and now I'm in Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida, and I get the same responses, the same adjectives: mesmerizing, enchanting, enlightening. And it's just, for me, it's unbelievable feedback, because I feel like I am taking them to another place, another world. And then they're in it and they're feeling it. And then they leave feeling like, wow, this is,
Well, this was medicine theater. I mean, that's what
yes,
the ancients were doing, was they
yes.
were trying to, it was an initiation. It was a transformation. It
Hmm.
wasn't to go and, like watching TV, to be mindless for an hour. It was to go to be moved, as you
Hmm.
said. So
Hmm.
there was a very different agenda behind why you were doing what you were doing. And I think that that's
Yeah.
true. If you set that intention when you're creating that choreography, then sure, yes, it's going to come through, and you're intuitive enough, you're going to make it come through,
Yeah.
whatever the movements are. So that's
Yeah. And it's not just so ancient Egyptian sacred dance movements is, definitely there, but then there are other pieces that, like more modern pieces that don't have that vibe, but still give off, because I do have the
Mhm.
intention. It's like, you
Exactly.
know, I'm not trying too hard. I really literally do get moved so often. I just get moved, and it's like, oh wait, what did I just do? Then I have to go back and try it again. But it's really powerful to me. And yes, it is medicine theater, really.
Yes.
When it comes
Yes.
down to it, and I love that. I love that people are getting something from it. I had one woman say to me, she said, I was having a hard time breathing. And then I watched this piece, and
Wow.
and then I could breathe. I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
it's
Grief.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I really, really very excited about that. But here I am on the journey. Like I'm contemplating to put something out of chronicling my chronicles of my journey, making the journey of Hera, because
Yeah.
it's like my journey is
Yeah.
like there's a lot going on
Well,
here.
it is. It's an
And
archetypal journey, and we each take it in our own way. So,
mhm, mhm.
different iterations of the same blueprint.
Yeah. And then with my piece Becoming Aphrodite, which I've shown performed a lot and have shown a lot around, um, I had gone for a grant at one point, well, a few times, but this one instance, the choreographers who were the panel of judges came back and said, well, where did you get your choreography from? And I'm like, because my
My head.
background and my feeling and my training, and I don't know. It's all a culmination of my work.
Sure.
But it was just so bizarre, because I'm like, but we're creators. We're
Yeah.
creating. Didn't understand that. But I think it's just I think people feel something, and I don't know if they understand what they're feeling. And I will say, it's not just for women. The show is the heroine's journey. But I've had so many men come up to me and tell me what they felt, not even asking, anybody want to volunteer what you felt? No,
Yeah.
they come to me and say,
Sure.
I feel these things. And it really does, it's really not just for women, it's for everybody. Because
Humanity.
at the end of the
Mhm.
day, we all have a journey to go through, and we all have the choice to take that journey. And the journey is not easy. We could put
No.
blinders on and live our lives, and if that makes you happy, then that's what you do. But there is real satisfaction, growth, um, and we ultimately find out what we're made of, and who we are at the end
Yeah.
of it. If we not, and I don't want to say the end of it, because the journey should keep going, keep going, keep going.
Mhm.
If we have that mindset of, okay, what's going to happen next? What's on the agenda today? What's going to come my way today, and how will I tackle it? That's where it all
You
starts
know
to,
when you get there.
yeah, yes,
Oh, that's what we're doing today. Yeah.
yes, that's
But I
right.
think I would just want to illuminate a couple things that you said, because I think they're really important, that you had the vision. Like that's the thing. And I think especially like with the heroine's journey, we hear the call. The
Mhm.
divine feminine is calling us And that's the fool in the tarot. And the fool just walks off the cliff. You don't know what you're doing. It doesn't matter, but you'll figure it out. And we have to find that in ourselves, because we're so programmed that we need to know the answer before anybody asks us the question. I don't know. I'm the fool. I don't know, but I know I need to do this and I will figure it out. And then again, I think the not looking too far ahead, like, yeah, what do we need to do today? Today I need to figure out how to do a budget. Okay, I will figure that out. I'm an intelligent person. I can figure that out. And then the next day you get your next task and the one after that. And I think another piece that comes up for me about your story is that this is a very feminine journey, in that you hold the vision. You are the one that is pregnant with, have been seeded with this idea, and you are doing all the pieces. And I think that that's important, because this is the way I feel about my work. And other people suggest things to me, but I think it's important that we do it all ourselves, because then we are putting our essence into whatever it is. Maybe I'm not the best graphic designer in the world, but whatever I create is definitely a reflection of what that idea is and what's inside of me. And I read, you let me read your first script. Like, you could see it. And I think it is a good idea, like, to write it down every once in a while, or set, those are good tasks to do. But you were the one that held the vision, and you are the only one that can see it. And even if you can't see it, can know it in that bigger perspective. And I think that that's important. We're in a world where we have all these experts, hire somebody to do your social media, hire somebody, they're going to do it better. Yeah. Okay. Technically, yes, but it doesn't hold the essence and the magic and the mystery. Like you're saying, you hold that. You're holding space for that child to be born. You don't take the child and put it in different womb. You take it 1 month and you take it another month. You hold it and you develop it. It creates an essence. And I think it's a very important part of the feminine journey, is this, not that people can't help you, that they can't teach you, but they teach you and then it's passed through you.
Right.
The budget, somebody teaches you how to do it, but then it passes through you, because only you know what's really important in the whole process. So I think, again, those are things that I see that I just want to reflect back to you, because I think that's such a beautiful explanation or example of this feminine journey that women do take, and why it's so important, and how it is different than maybe a journey that a man might take. So yeah, beautiful.
No, that's so true. I will admit, there have been a number of times I'm like, what am I doing? This is too hard. I can't do this. I'm going to quit. No, I can't do it. And then there's a part of me that goes, you can't quit. You have, this is an idea that you can't just let go of, because it's too big. It's too much. It's like, I revert back to what people tell me, what they saw, what they felt. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't stop this. At the same time, there have been so many struggles and obstacles. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going on my own heroine's journey. It's crazy, but it's what it is. I have to go through it. And going through those days and those obstacles has also, it's like, I've asked myself, oh, why isn't this show up and running yet? Why isn't it up and running yet? And it's like, wait a minute, it's because she's not ready yet. And if she's not ready, it's because I'm not ready yet. So then I go back to the drawing board. Okay, what is it? And all of a sudden, something will come up like, oh my gosh, that's what I need to do for that piece. Oh, no wonder why it's not ready yet. Things keep coming up. It's like, wow, no wonder why that's not out there yet. It's just,
but humanity's not ready yet. I mean, this is something that I noticed because Karen Brown and I have done several summits about answering the divine feminine call. And as you know, the work that I've always done for 30 plus years is all about the divine feminine. But I remember gatherings like back in 2012 where I would say things and women would look at me, some with great disdain about what I was saying and how dare I say something like that. And then now, like when I can say the same thing, and there are women that are like, yes, you know. So I think that it's only now, like since COVID, actually, I believe that was I believe that's when the divine feminine came in, and there was a huge not came in, she's always been here, but was acknowledged, because I think people didn't feel safe. And when you want to feel safe, you need that mother archetype, and then all of this that becomes many reasons. But anyway, there has definitely been a shift. So I think your piece been produced 10 years ago, it wouldn't have gotten the response. People wouldn't have had taken down the walls in order to truly experience what you're going to give. But now, in this time, and hopefully in the next few years, I think people will be ready. They'll be ready to absorb what it is that you have to offer. So I think it's about divine timing as well as personal timing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not easy to sit back and go, okay, I accept that it's not ready yet. I accept that it's not out there yet. You know, but it's what it is. You can't force it. You can't force it. It has to just happen when it's the right time.
And I think the same thing birthing a baby. You know, you get to the end, it's like, oh my God, come on already. You know, I've had enough of this. But the baby comes when the baby's ready, and when the baby's ready, like when, you know, they're physically ready to transition into this world. And I think that, again, to remind yourself of that, to trust that, you know, it will be birthed in the perfect moment that it needs to be birthed. So
yeah, and I get really great satisfaction out of performing different pieces that people get, you know, the response that they have is just like, oh wow, it really, I don't know, it's really it's a communication, you know, it's a communication between audience and the performers, you know. And then even for me too, it informs me too, like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know.
yes,
it's really, yeah, this is my journey.
beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we're looking forward to to seeing the pieces as they come, but also the finished product.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here and sharing your journey with us. And I'm sure you'll be back in the future to give us an update on what's going on. But if people want to find out more about you, you have two websites. One is SuzanneCaesar.com, and then the other is the HERAOdyssey.com. And the links will be in the show notes, so you can click on them. You're also on Instagram. And you were saying if people wanted to see more of the about the HERA Odyssey, that this is probably the place to go.
Yes.
The HERA Odyssey, your Instagram page on the HERA Odyssey.
Yes, the website's under construction right now. So yes, at the moment.
And as always, there's fundraising to get this thing manifested in this world. So if people want to contribute to this project, there is a link. And again, it will be in the show notes. So it's fundraising.fracturedatlas.org/the, and there's dashes, the HERA-Odyssey, the-HERA-Odyssey. So if you would like to contribute to this and hopefully make it come about a little more smoothly, then you can definitely contribute to that. Well, thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Leslie. That's great.
Been lovely to talk to you as always, and also to hear more about, because like I said, I was blessed to have been there at the beginning when you conceived, and so excited to see the finished product, but also to hear about your journey along the way, because I think that's just as important as what happens in the end. So thank you for being here.
I loved it. Thank you so much. Yeah, pleasure.
You're welcome. And thank you to the audience for being here. As I said, it was a pleasure for me to get to talk to Suzanne and to share her story. I was there in the beginning, and I've been excited. I keep saying that because I've been excited since I read the first script about how this was going to unfold. And I think it's a really important piece, and I have seen small pieces of it, and it's beautiful. So I do hope that you will contribute if you're able to, and just follow Suzanne and see how it's unfolding along the way. If you want more information about me, you can go to my website, universaldancer.com. And I also have a school where I teach online courses, and that's universaldancer.thinkific.com. Again, thank you for being here, and I hope you will join us again next month. All right. Bye-bye.